Yeah, it's a silver-looking cup, probably pewter, and engraved with wrestling Cornish style, won by Sam Ham, Manor House, Jepstown, SA, South Africa.
Brian Butler describes the simple metal trophy won by his grandfather a century ago that spent a good 2 decades in the soil after it was stolen from the Butler family's house. It was found by Cormac worker Paul Richards last year while digging at Tucking Mill.
The dumper tipped out, I pushed through the pile, and as I came back, I just saw something shine in there.
What did you think it was?
Well, I don't know, because you could only see a little bit of it. So I got out and dug around and had a look and picked that trophy up.
He passed it on to his colleague, site agent Wayne Wilford, who did some research of his own.
I was just curious of the name, Jetstone, so I just Googled it and found out it's in South Africa. Then I got in contact with the press in Johannesburg, and the press officer I spoke to, her great-grandfather was a Cornish miner. So it just rolled on from there.
So you made that connection initially, the call to South Africa. When did Cornish Mining Heritage get involved?
The press officer in Johannesburg advised me to contact within the Cornish Heritage. So that's how I got in contact with them, through the lady in Johannesburg.
Ainsley Cox is the man at Cornish Mining World Heritage who was able to research the trophy's history and put it in its proper context.
We engaged the services of a local historian, Steve Colwell, who did some great background research on our behalf into census returns and shipping records, and then we could start to piece together some of Sam's travels.
And just from a small item like this, really, you can create a picture of a pretty much a vanished world, can't you? All sorts of stories come out of this, all sorts of connections, two sides of his family which had never met.
Yes, absolutely. Sam, his activities were kind of, I suppose, typical almost of those of many thousands of mine workers from Cornwall, particularly in the 19th century into the early 20th century, who were going overseas to seek their fortune, to work in the gold and diamond mines perhaps of South Africa, in Australia, silver mining in Mexico, for instance. It was a global industry, and the Cornish were known as being the best at hard rock mining, or had the reputation of being like that, and they were prepared to exploit it as much as they possibly could.
After advertising in a local paper for living relatives of Sam Ham, a number of descendants on different sides came forward. Great-niece Elizabeth Doney was one of them.
A friend of mine saw it and she knew a bit about my family tree, and she contacted me, and then I telephoned my number in and said that I knew a little bit about Sam. But a cousin of mine knows a bit more, because his father rather worshipped Sam, and he had his photograph taken with some of the cups.
For Brian Butler, the wrestler's grandson, it's great to have the trophy back, and it's hoped it and the story behind it can go on display in the mining district where Sam learnt his trade and his sport.
There's no real value apart from what it represents. That's the value of the thing. Yeah, I knew Sam Ham. He died when I was about 6 years old. I remember him entertaining us in the garden and things like that. He was a keen gardener, and he was our grandpa.